Hey, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Petrinovich, joined as always by my co host, Kelley Gilster. Hi, Kelley.
Hi, guys. Hi, Taylor. How are you?
I'm great. I feel like this year is just off to such a good start. We have such high energy over here at the Level Up Co. And we're just keeping the ball rolling with an amazing guest today, Samantha, who is a wedding planner. And she also hosts an incredible educational in person retreat for wedding creatives. And we can't wait to chat more about those things with Samantha here in just a sec. But Kelley, how are you feeling today?
Honestly, a little under the weather. Me and Taylor were talking about this before we hit record. Just like one of those days where, I don't know, I think you got sick too. A lot of people have been getting the flu, and I'm hoping that that's not the case for me right now, too. Especially because at the time of recording, Taylor and I will be getting together next week, and we have lots of just irons in the fire right now. So it's not the best time to be getting sick. So I'm literally, after recording this, I told Taylor, I'm going to like hop into bed, try to sleep as much as I can, drink some tea, maybe some emergency, and try to like nip this.
I feel like rest and hydration are such key players when it comes to like trying to expedite getting better or like not get as bad as it could be when it comes to like colds and flus. And I'm sorry, I feel like this time of year it's just something's going around.
For sure. But yeah, I am so excited though to talk to Samantha today because she has an amazing topic that I think a lot of filmmakers, photographers, other wedding creatives that are listening in, she's going to be talking about something that is a deeper level of networking that goes beyond just that wedding day. It goes beyond something where you can get in the room with other people, and it is so valuable. It took me a really long time. I remember actually friends of ours who were telling us how important it was for them to get in the room with like other wedding creatives, and I was like, "Oh, well, like I see people at weddings and it's fine," or but it's just different, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it's connecting outside of a work environment where everyone's following a timeline and under a little bit of pressure. Like that's a different relationship that you're going to develop than when you have maybe a fancy dress and a cocktail in hand or something like that. Or maybe you're even experiencing something new for the first time together. So some retreats will have really cool excursions. And I feel like the bonding that happens between people, like on a human level outside of work, is really great for us to feed our souls, but also to feed our businesses because it's no secret that people like to work with people that they like, right? And so, how else are you going to establish that baseline than an in person event? Like what we are going to be talking about today. So Samantha's going to be going over some strategies with us of how we can best maximize meeting in person at events like this, and we can't wait for you to listen in on this conversation. This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm Taylor Petrinovich,
And I'm Kelley Gilster of 618 Studios.
and we are on a mission to help wedding filmmakers and photographers level up their businesses so you can make more and work less.
We want to help you confidently take your business from mainstream to luxury, and it all starts right here. Well, hey, Samantha, thank you so much for joining us this week on the podcast. How are you?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. We're so excited to just hear a little bit more about you and your business. Can you give us, give the listeners just a quick kind of like origin story of yourself and then how this has evolved into this amazing retreat that you host now?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kinetic Experiences actually started almost 4 years ago now, and it started sort of out of what I like to say is both a need and a want. So at the time, a colleague and I were both sort of not originally from the markets we live in now, and really were looking for ways to further connect with vendors and further sort of our relationship, but also sort of grow. We were from a different market and saw how those markets had pushed and developed, and we wanted to sort of bring that to where we both lived now in Southwest Ohio. And we started a dinner series. What started was just first a way to just get everybody together, bring sort of a really high touch experience to everybody, and really gather what we knew was everyone who was part of a wedding or an event at the table together. Uniquely situated as a wedding planner, I get to speak to or work with every single partner, but not everybody else gets to have those interactions or really see the benefit or the value or how those interactions really take place. And then the other side of it was really sort of the need, or the want side of it, I guess, at that point, is that I really wanted to continue to find people who were sort of aligned in the trajectory that I wanted to be heading in, which was to really find other creatives who wanted to push the envelope, who wanted to flip the room on its script, who wanted to bring in new product, who wanted to build, get their hands dirty, try new things, even if they weren't sure what it was like. And sort of it grew from there. So it started first as a dinner, then went full day, then went day and a half, then went half day, full day, half day. And as you can see, sort of grew into what is now what we call our 3 day model, which is really a 2.5 day experience.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love how it just like started off kind of organically. You said you just wanted to kind of build community, find like-minded creative partners that you could, bounce ideas off of and inspire each other. And that's so cool that now it's just grown into this amazing 3-day experience.
Yeah, and wedding days are very stressful and not a ton of conversations outside of what's actually happening of the scope of the event can really naturally occur. So I am a huge fan of meeting up in person outside of weddings. I think that's so smart. I actually have a question for you. So you're a wedding planner and you wanted to, as a wedding planner, seek out these relationships, which I think is something that might be surprising to our audience because our audience is comprised mostly of photographers and filmmakers. And it's generally us feeling like we are seeking out the planners. And sometimes I think when it comes to pursuing a planner relationship or trying to get in front of a planner, whether that be online or in person, I feel like there can be a bit of feeling like we are annoying a little bit. And I feel like since you talked about wanting to engage people and create a space for this meeting in person, that may not be the case. Maybe planners are not as put off by us trying to pursue relationships with them like we may be a little bit worried about. So can you speak to that and your perspective as a planner?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a trajectory that businesses go in. And I think when I first moved and first started my business, the sort of barometer of the people I was looking for was pretty much anyone and anyone, everyone and anyone who would give me the time of day. And through those conversations, I found sort of two general groupings of people: those who were just really happy with the work that they're doing day in and day out every year, and were just kind of okay with that. And that didn't sit well with me. And then there was the flip side, which was like, yeah, okay, someone new, like, let's connect, let's find that. But also, oh, I want to do this thing. Oh, you brought up this idea. Like, that's been on my bucket list too for a really long time. And for me, it really kind of came as my business continued to grow and how I looked at sort of those groupings of people. I, yes, continue to still get outreach from people all the time. And it's really nice when I get to meet new people and learn about new businesses. I just had a new bridal stylist reach out this morning who's a lot closer than others that I've worked with. And so that's really beneficial to know if I'm not actively seeking them. But then there's the flip side of when you reach out to somebody and they're not actually a good fit. And it's hard to sometimes navigate how to value the relationship as a person and as an individual, and know that we all sort of have our own unique skill sets and value. And I truly value people. Like, I just really like people and their stories and what's interesting about them. But I also have to balance that with being, a business person and finding the right vendors who work for me or work with me and who align with my clients. And so there was an element of which I wanted to go forth and find things that really people would align with sort of what I wanted to do with my business and where I wanted to go and where I wanted to produce. And the conversation comes up the more I grow and the more destinations I do, is I want to find more people who want to work in, more vendors, more colleagues who want to work in the same markets that I want to work in. Because it's great if I've got a Chicago photographer, but if they don't want to go to Colorado with me, then that's fine and I respect that. But then they're going to kind of stay in that Chicago hole for me. And it's always more fun, I think, when you're growing in a direction together with community, with people and friends and colleagues around it, because there's different sides to every event. And I think that there's different sides to that growth and making those movements together. So it kind of really came from that in terms of finding who are those next best people to move forward with. How can I find that community within where I'm pushing and where are my goals and what I want to be doing with my business?
Yeah, I like that. That's such a great way to put it. And I think that people sometimes know that we need to be networking, but they don't exactly understand why or understand it in a deeper level. So I think you explained it perfectly. And so when it comes to these in-person events, whether that be a workshop, a retreat, a conference, or whatever, I feel like they all kind of have um, a niche associated with them. I would love to hear what your vision is for Kinetic and maybe what people can identify within their own businesses and goals, whether or not it might be a good fit for them to want to attend. And then I would love to hear any details you're willing to share about it. Just um, this spring, I feel like heading into wedding season, people are thirsty for those in person interactions. So I just think it's such a great opportunity for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really when we talk about niches, I think it kind of comes again, the sort of duality of what we want people to get from it, but also what we want people to sort of take away with them and identify in it. And part of that for us is we really want to attract people who are looking to sort of grow and excel, but want to sort of do it on their own terms, want to kind of define what success is for them. I always use the analogy that I think the question is great. How many weddings are you doing this year? But to be frank, I think it's a little crock because in reality, I don't know where you live. I don't know what your overhead is. I don't know if you have other multiple streams of revenue. I don't know if you're the breadwinner of a six children family. I don't know what that looks like for you. So to ask such a singular data point doesn't give me the full degree of the demographics of who you are, what your life actually looks like. And so we really want to look at our events truly as a way to serve the whole person, right? So it's the reason we call it an educational networking retreat is because it's one part educational. We really want to bring people in to be educational to you. We also believe that everything we do is sort of the byproduct of really, really great networking. It's intimate. You get to spend 3 days with people, with speakers, along with speakers. Our speakers are all required to be there the whole length. They don't show up, speak, and then leave. So it's a really different experience that you get to go to breakfast with them or dinner, or maybe you guys go get drinks at the bar afterwards because you're the night owls. And then the retreat side, it's intimate. So there's a lot more that you get to discover about yourself, about the people you surround yourself with, and about the location and the place that you're in as you're going through those 3 days of sort of intimacy with it. And it's kind of hard to pinpoint into like a great catchphrase in and of itself, but there's so many layers to I think who we are as business owners within the wedding and event space. It's different when you like go to work and you can close off the clock and you're done. It's different in that regard. Or in some businesses where the worker kind of is almost dedicated to the success of that, right? I think we bring a part of our work home all the time. Many of us who also work at home, there's sort of the obvious part in that. But that I think there's a part of what we bring to weddings, many of us having either been to them or having had our own. There's a part of that our clients really do buy into our personality and also into our personal philosophy. And so what I think my ultimate goal that I want to give people is more permission to sort of step into their light and be and define success on their own terms, but also define what their business looks like on their own terms. Not just what we're hearing in all the different places. I mean, you ladies are a perfect example of having multiple streams of revenue and having a lot of transparency around where your funds and things go and what that looks like. And I think we need to hear more of that. And so that's part of what we look for within speakers in and of itself. So Taylor, you asked a little bit about things coming up and what that looks like. So obviously we have our March event and I'm really, really excited to be in Santa Barbara. Given the fires that have happened this year, really kind of just looking forward to being able to give more money back to the California market and do as much as we can to sort of support those people and see what we can to do and help California as a whole. But also because Santa Barbara is just a really interesting sort of mini Mecca market for weddings and events and sort of that like perfect little area of weather. It sort of feels a little bit more like suburbia California than it does sort of a big city California that I think people think of like San Diego, LA, and San Francisco. I'm really, really excited that we're so close to the water and being able to do some things with there. Of course, we're near wine country, so there's going to be some experiences around and surrounding with wine as well. And then what really you can look forward to after that is we're going to launch our 2026 calendar events this summer as well. And so really, really excited to sort of be able to give people the ability to plan a little bit sooner and earlier, get save the dates out there. We're going to go to the opposite end of the country next year. We're going to go full blown East Coast. And then we've got a fun one for November. So roughly there should be about 2 to 3 Kinetics every year. And the idea and the hope for us is that our community that comes, our attendees that come, that we're really sort of putting our community, our alumni, and our speakers sort of at the forefront every way, every turn of a new event comes to really bring them into the community and continue to introduce them to each other and help with that connection points, the trajectory that they're going in and sort of finding and developing their own ROI.
As an introvert, I love that you're kind of facilitating a lot of this interaction, because I've been to really large conferences and I'm not naturally the kind of person who would just like walk up to a stranger and introduce myself out of the blue. I feel like I'm a little bit more of a wallflower until somebody that's more extroverted, like maybe Kelley, like makes that first step. So I'm always a fan of events that almost like initiate that for you so that you don't have to be put on a brave face and try to do it yourself. And I know that I'm sure half of our listeners are nodding along in agreement that maybe they're more introverted as well. And actually, Kelley and I are really excited because we are going to be speaking at Kinetic. We're thrilled to be there. And if you are listening to this podcast and have been interested in maybe hanging out with us in person, this is a great opportunity to do that. And we actually have a code for you to enroll or register for Kinetic in the show notes in our special link that Samantha has provided us will get you $500 off your enrollment price. So that was very generous for her to provide the Level Up community. So thank you, Samantha. I would love to hear. So like I do think that we've talked about like the concept of a bingo card a couple times here on the podcast so far this year, and we're only a month into 2025. So we want people to have on their bingo card, you know, diversifying their revenue. And then we also want putting meeting up more in person, being in the room on the bingo card as well, because that's a vital part of any business wanting to grow. And our audience is specifically interested in elevating their business into the luxury market or even pushing further into the luxury market for those of our listeners who have already achieved like the entry level market. So for maybe somebody who's new to these sorts of events or somebody who wants to maximize an experience like at Kinetic or hopefully with Kinetic, what are some tips you have when it comes to networking and getting those initial relationships going?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. There's so many different areas, so many different things we can touch on this. I will focus it. I think the first thing to do, and my first sort of recommendation in prepping for any in-person event, is always to sort of get to know yourself and how you work through a room. I know personally for myself, I'm actually better alone in a space, whether it's with somebody and I'm not, the buddy system almost like ties me down to someone too much. So for me, I like to go to an event that I know somebody and have a safe space to land within the room, but also being able to just flourish in myself. I find that I navigate a room more naturally that way. So I think really getting to know yourself and what value you bring, what topics you like to talk about, prepping a handful of topics that you know you can sort of always go to, having it on a note on your phone or like in a draft text to yourself, is a really great thing just to have and pull up and be like, okay, got it. I remember. When you go to the restroom, you can refresh your memory. Like when you're going to check something real quick of what the itinerary is, you can remind yourself is another great way to do it. I think the other thing is to look at and consider sort of how you everyone looks at these events in a way of how can I get some ROI from it, right? And I think that there's a delicate line that we have to walk there because you don't necessarily go to these events and walk away with thousands of dollars in business, right? You're not going to get that. But this is laying a stone in a very long pathway. And the more you lay those stones, the easier the pathway becomes to walk, right? The easier it is to start up those conversations, the easier it is to have them. And I think what Kinetic provides to what you pointed out earlier, Taylor, is the itinerary is a little bit more relaxed throughout the day. So what we have found is that our attendees, the relationship they build at Kinetic isn't just solely at Kinetic. It doesn't just pop up when they're at one Kinetic and then pop up again at the next Kinetic. It's something that because of the downtime actually gets to bridge and build and basically flood out into their normal life, right? World outside of sort of Kinetic to where they're building those Instagram relationships. One tip I always love is in the moment of how or wherever you met somebody is to either take a selfie or to send them a DM and say, "Hey, this is Samantha. I met you at so and so when we were doing the Cornerstone dinner on day 3. Finally, great to talk to you. Like, would love to catch up." And try to always bring in, I like to always try to bring in a level of professionalism, but also something personal about them because the personal side is something I can keep in my notes and follow up on. I had a call a couple weeks ago and she had to pause in the middle of a call and open the door for her new mattress that was coming in. And so I've been able to open up emails being like, "How is it? Is it soft enough?" Like, and it was one of those shrink wrap mattresses that you have to like cut open and let like the air fill through. And she's like, I was like, "How was it? How did it work? Like, did it unfold?" And that's been such like a nice, just a way to humanize the person behind it. I think as we grow and every business grows within like the luxury space, there's different ways that people like to connect and be seen. And when you can really be observant in the space that you're in, it allows you to sort of see ways in which you can nurture those relationships.
Yeah,
I
that's so good.
else
I
to
love how you talked
say.
about just humanizing people and just bringing a personal aspect to it because it's when you're in, sort of a semi buttoned up, retreat or educational space, you think that it just needs to strictly be business. And I actually think that that's like a huge when people don't really let their guard down a little bit and they really do just stay all business all the time, it doesn't allow for that deeper level of connection to really occur organically. And yeah, it's something that I feel like Taylor and I have talked a lot about on this podcast is even like, when we're conducting consultations with clients, like, bringing in a little bit of a personal touch. And so same thing goes for these retreats and getting in the room. And when you do get in the room, um, I remember like, so this is pre-COVID. I felt like there was like so many more kind of like parties happening like locally in our market. And I remember my husband, he was kind of the one that introduced this whole concept to me. We would go together because we're a husband and wife team, and he's like, I like going these and I like to talk about anything but weddings. I want to talk about like what are your hobbies? Where did you grow up? Did you play sports? Like anything else. Like he loves like scotch and whiskey. And so if he can like connect with someone about those different things, like it's just a different layer than just being like, "Hey, how many weddings do you have this year? Which planners are you working with this year?" Like, it's just, there's no, like,
I think the viewpoint
commonality
of sort
that's
of what you point out is you're making it about the person and less about
yeah.
what their achievements are, right? It's a little bit about how are you defining who you are and your individualism and what keeps you going rather than like how are we pinpointing you on a map within the market of like because
Yes.
what value does that give you of what planners they're working for? It's a competitive thing. I'm not working with them.
Totally.
Oh, can you do an introduction? Gets a little competitive
Yes.
within that. So, and to your
Yeah.
And
earlier
it's
point about the business side, I'm totally that person who truncates this is business, this is personal. And so people who actually follow up with me and use my personal life, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I do have a personal life." And we did talk about that because I don't normally lead with it. So if you get it out of me, I'm like, "Oh, okay, total kudos to you."
Oh, yeah. That's
And I feel
cool.
like it's a way of, like, feeling seen. I feel like everyone wants to feel seen and, like, valued and, like, what we have to say matters, and when people remember or bring back up things that I've mentioned in conversation just kind of, like, subtly, I feel so validated as a person and, like, I will love you forever. So, I feel like it's even just, when it comes to, like, making friends in personal life, that's a great way to go about it, and it just 10x's when it comes to building business relationships
And I
as
feel like
well.
it makes people feel like they belong rather than them
Yeah.
trying to fit in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we want to create a space in which people feel like they belong in the community rather than them having to adapt and feel like they have to make themselves fit in.
Right. So, okay, listener, let's say a listener is listening in and they are thinking, well, I don't know, my business maybe doesn't feel like it's ready for something like this. Talk to who this is for. I think you talked about like it's for, everyone has their own personalized goals and things like that. So it kind of feels like it is for everybody. Who can attendees expect to kind of be in the room with, as far as like the general consensus of like what percentage of the room is planners or other creative partners, or who's going to be there, who is this specifically for, if a listener is just like, I might be interested, but am I a good fit?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically Kinetic welcomes everybody, and I would say typically is the wrong word, but we welcome all vendor categories. So all vendor categories are welcome there. The biggest sort of differentiator that we see is they're all people who are sort of entry level luxury and sort of above. We don't tend to see people in the ultra mega luxury who are working on, $5 million budgets, because they're harder. There's a lot less of them than you think there are, in that regard. I think Kinetic is a space for anyone who wants to move the needle. It's a space for anyone who just doesn't, who needs a shakeup, who's looking to get into new markets, who's looking to sort of connect with more people who align to their brand values, who want to see vision in a more way, who sort of need relationships on a deeper level, right? Because I think there's a lot of different results you can get out of attending Kinetic, and those are sort of, we find that people want to come because they need more community. Usually that community is aligning within that relationship factor. They're looking to sort of expand their market knowledge, expand their awareness. A lot of our photographer and videographer attendees, one nice little hack I will say about it is that they often will bring some sort of baseline gear and get a lot of footage for themselves, because they were in the market. They know about the market. And something we do at every Kinetic is sort of weave in a little bit of a market undertone, so that you know what the Santa Barbara wedding market's like. Could it be the right fit for you? So not that you're deciding to attend because of the location, but sometimes it's a factor for people. If they've already been trying, it's a great way to get firsthand knowledge and work with people who are going to be there. Right now, I can tell you already, we have photographers, videographers, florists, stationers, wedding planners, rental linen companies, and a content creator as well already coming. So there's a good mix of people who are already there. And I think it's what I love is, I think the more mixed our attendees are, the more dynamic and interesting the conversation is, which to me results in just really, really rich, robust experiences for people, because the conversation goes beyond sort of what we tend to see each category always talk about. If photographers are always talking about the same things, where have you shot? What are you shooting with? Like, oh, who have you second shot with? How are you doing second shooting? To growing into sort of, how can we robustly move the needle within our market? How do we know when we've outgrown? What pathway did you take? What are you finding is really working on your Instagram? How did you knock on that door of that planner, and how did it work? Oh, I sent them socks 15 different times and they finally let me in. Different pathways of that. I think the more diverse the audience that we have from different markets and different categories, the more interesting I think the whole events are as a whole.
Yeah, that sounds so fun. And I honestly all think so too, that it's great to focus on not only like who the speakers are, or who like key attendees may be, but also like the people at like the same level, at the attendee level, because I think that's where we get a lot of our value. But I am curious, are you able to share who some of the other speakers are? Because I know some people, that could be a selling point for them. They're like, oh, I've been wanting to meet this person or hear from them for so long, I'm in.
Yeah. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but one of my favorite things is that we ask all of our speakers to attend in entirety. So they really do wear a dual hat of speaking and attending. And so like they get off stage and then they grab a chair and sit to the next person talking, like truly in attendance. So we have, world renowned photographer John Dolan will be there. We have Lance Nickel. He's a photographer out of New Orleans. He brings a really, really, really unique, interesting perspective on his philosophy on sort of growth and consistency versus complacency. He's sort of quiet, but does a ton of NDA work. And so he brings a really sort of interesting viewpoint on that. We have the incredible Michelle Norwood, who is a wedding planner. Claire Duran, who's actually a global wedding planner. She's based out of DC, but actually has her team is multi-based in both Spain and the Dominican Republic. So want to talk about just like a force to be reckoned with, and how her team, but also how her weddings work. And she's such an interesting person that we've got coming. And then we have our guest host and creative director. And a lot of people ask, what's a guest host versus a creative director? And I'll touch on that. But Caleb Norman James of Caleb Norman James Designs. He is a sort of Seattle base, but does a lot of stuff up and down the California coast, and destination planner as well. And just has honed in so uniquely on his style and design, and just has a really great way of sort of putting his mark on something yet creating it to meet and speak totally in terms of who his clients are. But he's going to come in as a creative director, and our creative directors really bring the creative design and force behind what our events really look like. So they are the ones who pull the color palette. They are the ones who sort of pull the fashion inspiration, the wardrobe styling inspiration, and really design all of our dinners and put a lot of the visual component to it. But he's also wearing two hats that week, and is also our guest host. So our guest host is someone who's essentially going to be my co-host in the week, and they are going to be immensely there to be available, to be connective. What I love about our speaker lineup is they are people who actually value community, who they have themselves have had their own success stories with communities, but also value being connectors. They like making introductions. They like helping people along. They really sort of value that sort of rising tide lifts all boats philosophy, and really like giving back rather than sort of keeping the cards too close to keeping the cards for themselves.
That's great. What a cool group. And so fun that Caleb, I love Caleb. He is the best and so wildly talented. So attendees are really going to be just blown away, I know, by his designs already. He's incredible. So how fun that he's going to be co-hosting with you.
Yes. Caleb's just he just has so I value how much his intentionality is behind what he does. And it's not just something for the sake of something. It's how does that move? How does that present itself? And then also what's like the guest interaction with sort of how the design unfolds and creating it to be interactive and memorable and thoughtful along the way.
Yeah. Such a treat. So fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that Taylor and I are so excited to be there. And like you were saying, the speakers also get to, be with the attendees throughout that 3-day experience. And that's really so unlike so many of these other types of in-person networking, educational retreat events where there might be that level of separation between the speakers and the attendees, and there's not a lot of like face to face time where you can continue in those deeper conversations. So I love how Kinetic is structured in that way. I think it would be an amazing opportunity for any of you guys listening to come out to California, or if you're already in California, come to Santa Barbara. It is a truly spectacular place. I love spending time in Santa Barbara. I'm about 2.5 hours south of there, and we do weddings there. I would say like one or two a year in that area. It's so stunning. So, what a great spot to choose to be able to bring this really great group of people together.
Yeah, I'm excited. And there's just while you're there, book a couple venue tours because there's so many great venue spots that are there, and you just can't miss them.
Yeah.
That's actually I wanna, like, call back to what you said, earlier, is that a lot of the photo, video, or even content creators, I guess, like, bring, like, a baseline level of gear. I think that's such an amazing hack. So that's something that we actually suggest to our audience if you're looking to break into destination work or target a specific area, is to go travel on your own dime in a personal level, bring your gear and create content about the environment, or that like immersive content about the location. And I think that's such a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone. I hate that phrase, but that's what we're doing here. Is you're coming to Santa Barbara in order for this amazing event, and then you can also create content to be posting on social media to align yourself with the market, even to maybe include on the banner of your website or whatever it is. People need to be able to see you working or associated with some location, and they don't need to know that you weren't there for work when it comes to branding yourself that way. So I think that's such a great tip. And if you've been thinking about targeting California, which actually we know a lot of our people who are located in the Midwest or on the East Coast are interested in getting their hands dirty with the California market, I think Santa Barbara is a great place to start.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Taylor, I'd add to that maybe if they attend, they might find a planner who's equally suited to wants to work in the same market. Because one of my hacks for planners is to find a photographer or videographer who wants to work in the same markets and then travel with them because they'll get the footage because you can't. There's only so far it goes on your phone. And so if you get it together, then you both have it, you tag each other, and the relationship grows because you traveled together. And
Yeah.
it's a great way to sort of build that relationship as well.
Yeah.
Bring a buddy.
So, yeah.
That's good.
Is there anything else, Samantha, that you wanted to add? Frequently asked questions that you're getting about this, that you could kind of roll through for the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions we get a lot is, are you required to stay on property? No, you are not required to stay on property. We always think it's a little bit more beneficial for you. There's more sort of in and out moments that you find when you might find that your speaker is just, your next door neighbor, or that walk to breakfast in the morning. It's always just a little bit easier at the end of the night. But no, you don't. It's a great way to sort of hack around expenses as well if you want to stay. Santa Barbara itself, during our itinerary, we always have afternoon breaks, and where we're at, just in the foothills there, we're right above sort of the main town area. So there is time to go to town within that. Um, People ask, when does it start and when does it end? So it starts on March 17th around 3:30 is when check-in will be, and then we end Wednesday around 9 o'clock is when the noise ordinance in the area goes into effect. So we'll end around 9 on Wednesday, and so we generally recommend either flying in on Sunday or Monday morning, depending on where you're located, because those flight times or availability will vary. And the airport is close by. The Santa Barbara Airport is a very, very easy Uber ride right there. So you don't really need to rent a car unless you're finding for some benefit, or if you're looping in on an extended trip to like LA or somewhere else that you want to kind of go visit, that you don't really need to rent a car. There's not really much need for it unless you're going to go visit far off venues or whatnot. But even then, it's pretty easy to get around in and of that self. Trying to think of other questions that we have come through. Um, we released VIP experiences, which are one-on-one sessions with our speakers. There's a limited number of them, so it's available to tickets. Whoever books in, I think everyone as of right now has a spot available as of the time of this recording. I'm trying to think anything else that you guys can think of that might be a frequently asked question that I didn't touch on.
No, I don't think so. I guess, I think there are sometimes people just that are hesitant about, it can be nerve-wracking to get in the room, but I just want to encourage anyone who's kind of feeling on the fence. And for myself in 2025, getting in the room is something that's all over my bingo card, because I just haven't done it enough. And it's so, so valuable. It it's a deeper, like, seed that's planted for relationships, a great relationship builder. The education factor is huge, being able to, not just I feel like Taylor and I do it ourselves. There's so much education out there that's like you have someone talking at you through a screen, through a course you take or a mastermind that you're in or whatever, but actually being in with other people, it's just unmatched. There's nothing else like it. And so I would just really, really encourage, if you're considering it and March, you want to get out to California, maybe you want to escape the cold a little bit and get some sunshine, this would be an amazing opportunity for you.
And I'd say feel free to reach out to us on Instagram. Like, I'm always there. I'm not the person who's going to ever talk to you about the weather. So I always love digging in, and we're happy to kind of chat through questions that you might be having or hesitations about it, or talk details about the itinerary if there's any sort of confusion. We've had some people bring their spouses who come along for the trip. If they both work from home, one of them gets to hang out for the week and the other one comes to Kinetic. We've had that as well. So there's lots of sort of great ways, and we're happy to sort of make connections. When you register, you get full access to our attendee hub, so you get to see all the other attendees as well and begin to start reaching out and connecting with everyone right away, so you can sort of build on that relationship ahead of time rather than sort of waiting till the first day when you're sort of stunned. I think that first moment of walking in the room is always the most nerve-wracking, even for me.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Taylor, anything else to add?
I guess just a reminder that links to everything we're talking about will be in the show notes or in the description box below if you're watching on YouTube. So again, just to like reiterate, we do have a link where you can get $500 off your registration fee, which again, like what a steal. Thank you, Samantha. And then we'll link her Instagram with Kinetic down below too if you want to connect, ask any questions, get clarification on whether this is a good fit for you. You and Samantha can chat directly. And that's it. Samantha, we're really excited to meet you in person and to meet all the attendees in person and to speak at your event. We are counting down the days and we can't wait till it gets here.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. I'm so glad we were able to bring this to your community and sort of bring it to all of your followers as well.
Amazing. Oh, and then real quick, Samantha, I know we'll link it below, but just for audio wise, where can the listeners find you online or point them to your website?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us on Instagram at Kinetic Experiences, or you can find us online at kineticexperiences.com, or you can email me at samantha@kineticexperiences.com.
She makes it really easy for us. That's perfect. Thank you for joining us in today's conversation. Please help us reach more filmmakers and photographers like you by taking a screenshot and sharing it to social media. And don't forget to tag us at The Level Up Co.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, as we continue to level up the industry together.